thank you for joining us at the ever-improving No Soundbites Allowed podcast. My name is Michael Vasquez. We thank you for joining us in this adventure of describing the politics that go on in our nation on a personal and local level as often as possible, giving you, the audience, more than just 30 seconds to understand what's going on in our nation. We look forward to joining you as we go. Just sit back, enjoy the ride. Please remember, if you like the episodes, like it, share it, let other people know, and if you can, please donate, even if it's $2, even if it's $5, because it all makes a difference. We thank you, and here we go. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. This is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, your host of the No Soundbites Allowed podcast, and I'm happy to have everybody here with me again. We always enjoy all of you, our listeners, because you are the reason why I do this every day and all the time. You make it worthwhile, and I thank you for that. And so today we're going to be talking about a couple of different issues. I want to talk about what's going on with Kanye and what that means to people of color and the Democratic Party and the nation in total. In addition, I do want to also talk about something else that's very pressing and prominent, is candidate Anthony Brindisi. Many people may know him as Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi of the 119th Assembly District in New York. He's out of Utica, and he was on WUTQ. It's a radio station up in Utica, and he was speaking there. And I have to tell you, every time I listen to Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi, when he's on the election trail, I just wind up with more and more questions. Now, if you're not aware, Anthony Brindisi is running for Congress. He's running for the New York 22nd District against the incumbent, which is Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. And he's the Democratic candidate, and he's been out on the campaign trail for about a year now. I have invited him onto the program to be able to speak and let people know about him. The last time I saw him was in Norwich a week and a half ago, actually on April 25th. I reiterated my request for him to be on the program and to speak with the public unedited, and he hasn't gotten back to us yet. We'll see if he ever accepts. But I can say that he's had a lot of questions that he's been raising by his comments. And I want to deal with that first because I think it's very, very important that we all understand who is it that we're voting for. Now, one of the things that really caught my attention was yesterday. Yesterday, there was an announcement, and most people may not be aware of this. Here's the sound effect. Newsflash. That's right. It's a newsflash announcement here, folks. Many people are not aware that yesterday there was a news announcement that came out, a study that was done about the casinos here in New York. Now, if you remember, in 2013, there was a Proposition 1 came out. Everyone was talking about it. It was a big deal about allowing casinos in New York State. And the promise was that if we had casinos, that would raise revenues, it would create jobs, it would be a benefit to the nation. That was the statement at the time. And I have to say that Anthony Picenti, who is the county executive of Oneida County, as well as Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi, were very, very big on this. Matter of fact, if you go to WIBX online, they have, that's one of the other radio stations up in the Utica area. And they have a wonderful, article about Picenti Brindisi support Proposition 1. They were in favor of adding casinos to New York State. And they believed that it would create jobs, bring in about $15 million annually, to Oneida County just by itself. And you have to say, well, that's kind of interesting. They're all in favor of it. They've thought this through. It should be able to help everyone. Except that's not what's happening. In fact, we see that one of the casinos out there, a couple of casinos actually, are in trouble. They're coming to New York State now, and they're asking for public funding for their private business to help them out because it's not working. The casinos are not making money. They're not employing people. We're not seeing the revenue that we were promised we were going to get here in New York State, which is not a new problem because I mentioned it back then that this would be a major problem. But it gets a little bit more interesting because there's a Wallet Hub is an organization. They do some, their financial app, and they also do studies. And in particular, one of their studies is on gambling addiction. That's a big deal. It affects about 3% of the population in the United States. And every year they like to do a little bit of a study. In fact, back in, to be exact, it was 2016, they had done a ranking of all the states, all 50 states, to see about their gambling addiction, which of those companies, which one of those states are the worst. And at that time, New York State ranked 33rd of all states in terms of how big the gambling addiction problem was, which isn't that bad out of 50 states. We were the lower half. But as of 2018, in an announcement in a survey that was done, which you can see also was written about on the Utica Observer Dispatch, which is a newspaper out of Utica, if you're not familiar with it, they happen to talk about the latest ranking. And the latest ranking shows that for New York State, we are now ranked number 17. So in 2 years, we increased by double. We've become the 17th worst state for gambling addiction. And that's pretty big news. And that's a bad problem. That's a pretty big problem that we have a lot of gambling. It actually gets a little bit worse because while the Utica OD had talked about the fact that we were number 17 in gambling addiction in all of the country, it gets a little bit worse because if you actually go to Wallet Hub, their website, and this will be on the podcast, and you'll see the link listed there. We're not just number 17 in gambling addiction. We also happen to be ranked on the issue of treatment for the gambling problem. Well, New York happens to be ranked 37th. So while we're the 17th worst for gambling addiction, we're the 37th worst at being able to treat that addiction. That's a problem. That's a major problem. And it brings up a question. When Anthony Brindisi, the assemblyman, when he went out and he told people that this would be a boon to the economy, that this would help people get jobs, he kind of left out the downside here, as did Governor Cuomo, to be fair. They completely left out the fact that gambling addiction was going to hurt people, that it was going to hurt communities and families, and that we had nothing in place to take care of that. We really don't. We have one thing. The casino can ban you for a year voluntarily. If you ask the casino to not allow you to gamble, they will give you a 1 year you can't gamble in their establishment. Now that's casino by casino, not statewide. So you actually have to go in and you have to say to in every casino throughout the state, all of the new ones, and say, hey, I don't want to gamble for a year. I have a problem. And they will stop you for a year to not be able to gamble. That's if you ask for it. There is no mandatory. There is nothing that will absolutely help you there. You have to actually say that to the casino. Otherwise, they'll just take all your money because that's what casinos do. They take your money. And so when we see that, when we look back and say, hey, what happened with the gambling addiction? With Proposition 1, we find out that, Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi never told the public that this was a possible consequence and that New York State has nothing in place to take care of that. That's an issue. Is that poor planning or is that politicking? I don't know. Was he just supporting Governor Cuomo and didn't care? Did he not know about it? Or was it an issue he didn't think was a big deal because he didn't realize the consequences of his actions by saying, let's have expanded gambling in casinos throughout New York State? So that was one big question I had. And I was going to get on the radio today to ask him about that and to try and find out what's he thinking. But I wasn't able to do that because he was in the middle of a conversation and we had the unemployment numbers come out. And that I thought was very, very interesting. And I even wrote about this on Facebook and on Twitter where I was speaking about it. And you can go and look on my Facebook page under Michael Voss, or you can go to the my Twitter page, which is MV Consult. And on there, I was asking about the unemployment rate, because Anthony Brindisi says that even though our unemployment rate for the nation went down to 3.9%, an all-time, the lowest since 2000, and across the board lows for people of color, Latinos and blacks, low unemployment rates, fantastic numbers. And he says that this isn't because of Donald Trump, our president. He says it's not because of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was employed by the Republican Congress. No, it was some other factor. Does he say what that other factor is? No, he does not. He just says that it's not because of Republicans. It's just because of, I don't know, the air, the weather. Who knows? He doesn't say. It adds a question. So is this politicking? Can he not accept the positive news that our national unemployment rate dropped to 3.9%? Better than anyone expected. Isn't that a positive? Shouldn't we be celebrating that? No, because Anthony Brindisi can't, because that would be celebrating a president that he's supposed to be against, because that's what his party says. And so here is this independent candidate that Anthony Brindisi says he is. And even though he's saying he's all independent and not going to be just another Democrat saying yes to Nancy Pelosi, he's turning around and doing exactly that. He's saying yes to Nancy Pelosi on this message that the nation is not doing well. That's what you keep hearing from the Democratic Party. The nation is not doing well. We're all in trouble. It's going badly. Really? We have 3.9% unemployment. President Obama never even got close to these numbers. And we're supposed to understand that, no, it's not because of Republican policies or economic policy actually working, that a businessman is actually doing what he said he would do if he got elected as president, which was improve the economy. No. That's all. You don't understand. You're getting more money in your paycheck. We're able to get more money from the IRS in our paychecks and in our pockets. But that's not a positive. That's horrible. The economy is going to hell in a handbasket. Really? Please, Nancy Pelosi, please, Anthony Brindisi, explain to me how giving people more money of their own money and taking less away from them in taxes is somehow negative. We have more jobs that have been created than ever before. Matter of fact, if you go over to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but if you go into the Bureau of Labor Statistics, look up the self-employed number. I will tell you what that is. You will be shocked, because the engine of actual growth, small business growth, you will be astounded by what that number is. But I'm going to get back into that in 1 second, because I'm going to take a quick break, as we do at the 15-minute mark, and then we're going to come back and we'll pick up on the second part of some of the other questions that just seem to come every time that Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi speaks publicly. There's just a lot of questions. And we're going to go over what some of those questions are in just a moment.
It's after midnight, and this moon's fit for a howl. The whiskey should have washed away this heartache by now. These visions of you, oh, but they're just a boo. And that's as true with me, that's true with you. And that's as true with me, that's true with you. They say seeking, these shall find. Looked in your direction and I found mine. We're both worried about the hands of time, and that's as true with me, it's true with you. That's as true with me, it's true with you. Two young lovers on a moonlit night. Lost souls searching for the light. Someone should have told them that love is blind. Yeah, they'll be searching their whole damn lives. And that's true with me, it's true with you. And that's true with me, it's true with you. They say seeking, he shall find. Looked in your direction and I found mine. We're both worried about the hands of time. And that's as true with me, it's true with you. And that's as true with me, it's true with you. 'Cause after midnight, this moon spit for how the whiskey should have washed away this heartache by now. These visions of you, oh, but they just double. And that's as true with me, that's true with you. And that's as true with me, it's true with you. And that's this trouble with me, this trouble.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us back at the favorite podcast, the No Soundbites Allowed podcast, with your host, Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier. I thank you for being back here with us. We always enjoy you being here. You make it worthwhile. Now, in the last segment, we were talking about some very interesting facts. The fact that New York State is now considered the 17th worst state for gambling addiction. We know that New York State is considered the 37th worst state in dealing with gambling addiction. And we know that we have Anthony Brindisi, who's the county executive of Oneida County. We know that Governor Cuomo and also Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi were all for this without telling the public that gambling addiction would be a growing problem for us, even as the casinos fail to live up to the promises that they made to us of extra revenue in terms of taxes and extra jobs. It's just not happening. But as I mentioned in the last segment, a lot of this is coming because Anthony Brindisi was speaking today on WUTQ up in Utica. And I was listening to him, as I always do. And I'll include a link so you can hear his entire conversation and everything that he said today. And one of the things that got me very upset is when he was there, he was talking about a lot of different issues, And I wrote about them in on my Facebook page. And one of the other questions that we had, besides the unemployment, trying to explain if it isn't because of the Republican Party, then who is it really because of that we have 3.9% unemployment? One of the things I didn't get to mention is, by the way, for New York State, the unemployment rate is 5.5% as of March, the last numbers that were available. And for Broome County, the unemployment rate is 6.3%. For Oneida, it's 5.8%. So we're almost 2 full points ahead, higher unemployment in the New York 22nd district than anywhere else in the state, and more importantly, than the entire nation. Something is wrong. What is it? And you can't blame the Republicans for that because New York is a blue state. The Republican Party doesn't control this. This is directly from Governor Cuomo and the Assembly, and that will include Anthony Brindisi. Their economic policies have driven out 1.2 million people from the state, tens of thousands of businesses, raised our taxes, and now we're sitting on a problem where we have higher unemployment. And when Anthony Brindisi is asked about these things, he doesn't answer. In fact, he was asked again whether or not he does in fact support the Democrats, and in particular Nancy Pelosi, in their promise that if they win the 2018 midterm elections, they're going to increase taxes on the small businesses and on the public. They're going to raise our taxes up. So that's going to take away from the jobs. That's going to take away from the money that's in your pocket right now. They want to take away more of your money to spend it On what? And there's the thing that they didn't mention. What are they going to spend it on? More entitlements? Are they going to create safe spaces for kids and make it part of your jobs that every employer has to have a safe space in New York and across the country? I mean, what are they spending the money on? They keep spending it and we don't see improvement. But when we suddenly see that we take more money out of the government and give it back to the public, well, then we see improvement. And here we are. But they think that's a bad thing. I don't understand how that can be. But I had a couple more questions from what Mr. Brindisi was saying today. And I'm bringing these up because I want him to answer these. I'm not telling you not to vote for Anthony Brindisi or to vote for him. I'm not telling you who to vote for. What I am saying is you have a politician, a candidate who is refusing to answer questions for the public, and he is raising more issues than he is answering. That is a problem. No one should vote for a candidate who can't answer a question or is raising more questions by the way they answer things. That's a problem. That's just not right. So one of the big things, which was brought up by Professor Luke Perry. A lot of people may not be familiar with him. Professor Luke Perry is out of Utica, that region, and he has you can call it a website. It's a website that he likes to call independent, and it's actually very left-leaning. And he had noticed, and Anthony Brindisi mentioned, that he's not going to support Nancy Pelosi if he were to be elected to Congress for her to become Speaker of the House. That's not a surprise. Everyone knows that. Nancy Pelosi has a negative 20% popularity rate. She's not liked by anyone. But Nancy Pelosi is also responsible for $14,000 in donations to Anthony Brindisi, and her PAC, the House Majority PAC, that's actually run by Nancy Pelosi. It's a Democratic PAC, and they have spent about $500,000 so far in commercials, with at least another 3 to 4 commercials that are in the pipeline that are going to be filling our airwaves over the summer. Now, Anthony Brindisi says that he has no control over that he can't control a PAC. And he's right. Under Citizen United, he can't. They're able to spend the money in any way they want, which is the way that Nancy Pelosi wants it to be spent. But I find it quite interesting that he will not say, as he can, that Nancy Pelosi, the House Majority PAC, should not be spending any money in the New York race, which they're not involved with. They're in California. Why are they here in New York affecting our politics? And that they should not be influencing the race. This is what he has said himself, that he is against the Citizen United decision. And he's against that decision because he thinks that that allows for outside influence on races. If that's what you believe, that Citizen United is wrong. And if you believe that outside groups shouldn't be involved in elections, why are you taking money and allowing the House Majority PAC to be involved in the New York race, your race? It's kind of funny that he wants to complain about Wall Street, which is actually making donations to the House Majority PAC, and yet he's okay with them doing it for him. So as long as it's for him, it's okay. But for everyone else, it's a bad thing. Really? And by the way, if you look into the House Majority PAC, and people may remember this, I had promised you, remember back in November, Al Franken was in trouble because of his sexual harassment. And Al Franken had made a donation of $2,500 to Anthony Brindisi's campaign. And I promised people at that time, because Anthony Brindisi said he wasn't going to give the money back. Even though Al Franken was found to be a predator, he had to stop being a senator because of it. He kept the money, and he said, well, instead, what I'll do is I'll give it to an organization that could use the money more. He gave it to Planned Parenthood. Guess what Planned Parenthood did? In 2018, they gave the money back to Anthony Brindisi. So 6 months later, just as I promised, they washed the money. They took it from Al Franken. Well, actually, Brindisi took it from Al Franken. Al Franken gave it to Brindisi. Brindisi gave it to Planned Parenthood. They waited 6 months. Planned Parenthood gave him back the money, so it's still dirty money. And then they gave him more money because they're donors in the House Majority PAC for Nancy Pelosi. Now, when I put that all together and I consider the fact that, as Anthony Brindisi has admitted, he's met with and got approval from Nancy Pelosi back in March of 2017 for him to run, I have to wonder, how independent is he? Just because he says to the public, and as he's on the election campaign trail, and he says, oh, I'm not really involved with that. I won't listen to her. She doesn't control me. Okay. Except she's giving you money. She's running your campaign. She gave you an approval. I have a lot of questions. And you're accepting money, dirty money from people and playing games, shell games with the money so that people don't notice what actually happened. Guess what? I do. That's what I do. I pay attention to this. And you know what? You're moving the money around, but I'm tracking it. And you're getting the money. The money from Al Franken, the sexual predator, is back in your campaign. Shouldn't be. You said it was a bad thing. You're doing it. You said Citizen United's bad, but you're accepting their help as well. Seems a little bit duplicitous. If it's benefiting you, you seem to be very happy with it. When it's not benefiting you, well then, it's a bad thing and no one should be allowed to do it. That's very strange. That's a big question. Why would a candidate say it's okay for me, but bad for you? What else would you say that about? Taxes need to be higher because you should pay more money. Not necessarily me, but you. This isn't right. These are questions, big issues, and we're not getting answers from this. I mean, these are really important things. But I know what Anthony Brindisi and his supporters will point to, and they're going to point out and say, hey, you know what? It's all right because he's winning. He's winning the race. They're pointing to a Zogby poll that just came out yesterday that says that Anthony Brindisi is leading the race by about 7 points. Except that's not exactly true. See, the Zogby polls are kind of like any poll, statistics. You can prove almost anything you want. The sky's purple if you ask the right number of people and you average it out. In this poll, there were 412 people who were asked. Those 412 people lived in Oneida and Herkimer. Guess what? The New York 22nd race is 8 counties. Herkimer, Oneida, Oswego, Madison, Shenango, Cortland, Broome County, and Tioga. That's what the New York 22nd district is. They asked 412 people in 2 counties that happen to be where he's located. And they're saying that because he had a 7-point boost in those 2 counties, the other 6 don't count and he should win. Really? Because I can tell you what happens in Oneida isn't necessarily what's happening down here. I'll give you a great example of that. In that same poll, they found that 39% of the people in Oneida are upset and against the Utica hospital, and only 29% are for it. Now, here's a question. And I know a lot of people down in the southern tier region of New York, they're unaware of this. There is an enormous scandal that's been going on since January based on the emails, the FOIA'd emails of Anthony Brindisi showing that he made a backdoor deal with a couple of other government officials, including the Cuomo administration, to guarantee $300 million to build a brand new hospital that the people of Utica don't want. And there's lots of promises involved in this, except, again, another consequence of their action is they're going to have eminent domain. They are taking property away from the public. They will be taking away homes and businesses from people who don't want to give them up to make this hospital that people don't want there, because he decided back in January of 2015, he made a decision with 3 other people that they were going to, and that includes County Executive Anthony Picenti and Ray Meyer, that they were going to put a hospital in downtown Utica because that's what they wanted. Not what the public wanted, not what they told the public, but that's what they wanted. That scandal continues. People in Oneida and Herkimer are very familiar with it. They're very much against it. Anthony Brindisi is dead in the center of that. And if you ask people down in the Southern Tier or Cortland or Tioga, they don't know anything about it. So if you tell me that a poll that shows 2 counties versus 6 other counties that are involved in this race, and you say, well, he's going to win because of that, I tell you, that's just manipulation. That's not true. It's not even close to accurate. It's just a bad poll. It's just a bad poll. It doesn't mean anything. But these are the things that, again, there are questions here. Why is everyone being told that he's leading in a race when they haven't even looked at the entire race, when they haven't asked all of the people who are involved, or even a section of the people who are involved? Why is it that we have questions about what Anthony Brindisi is going to do this far into the race as he gets asked over and over again? He's been asked in Norwich. He's been asked on WTQ. He was asked by Dr. Luke Perry. He's been asked by me multiple times. Do you support raising our taxes? Do you support a ban on firearms, semi-automatic rifles? Do you support restrictions on the Second Amendment? He has not answered any of these questions. He dances around the questions. He was asked again. He was asked in Norwich. He was asked again today. Do you denounce and reject any of the outside funding coming from the House Majority PAC, which is Nancy Pelosi? Would you say not to be involved in this race? He didn't answer that. He walked around it. These are questions. And these questions are important because it goes to the credibility of the candidate and what will he do? If he were to be elected, what is he going to do? Because he has to have answers and he has to tell the people. And is that when we're going to find out where he truly lies? What his real answers are going to be? Because he's not willing to give them to us now, not when it can affect the vote. I think that's really scary. But we're going to leave that alone for now. And I'm going to go on to my next subject, which is going to be about Kanye West. I know everyone loves Kanye. So we're going to talk a little bit about Kanye in just a moment. But we're going to take another quick break and then we'll be right back.
I bring the matches, you bring the gasoline. Let's do it right, oh let's make a scene. There's no survivors, no survivors on this road we're on. Lead me astray, you little pussycat. Let's take this day and make it a disaster. Oh, I know what you're after. Happily ever after ain't a joke to you. Still the hand, won the knife. Yes, Lord, will you please spare this life? He said no. There's no survivors on this road wrong. Bring the matches, you bring the gasoline. Let's do it right, Oh, let's make a scene. There's no survivors, no, no, no survivors on this road. There's no survivors, no, no, no survivors on this road we're on.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us back at the No Soundbites Allowed podcast, your favorite podcast with your host, Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier. And we've been having a very fun and interesting podcast, I think. A little different than some of the others, but we're talking about the candidate, Anthony Brindisi, his comments today on WUTQ, his response to Wallet Hub, and the survey that says that New York State is now the 17th worst gambling addiction state, the 37th worst state for trying to resolve gambling addiction. And these are big issues. And we're not getting big answers from the candidate, which I think is absolutely important. Anyone who wants to run for any race should be able to answer basic questions. Like when he says that the unemployment rate of 3.9% is not because of the economic policies of President Obama and also the Republican Party and the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, then who is it? Who is responsible? He doesn't have an answer. When he says that he rejects Citizen United and the outside funding that it allows, well, we have to ask a question. Then why won't you reject Nancy Pelosi's House Majority PAC? He doesn't answer. He won't say. Well, that's a problem. But there's more. I promised we were going to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about Kanye West. Not my favorite entertainer. And in general, I don't like entertainers talking about politics. So automatically that puts him a peg down for me because I don't enjoy that. I don't think entertainers are any smarter or better than anyone else in talking about politics because they're just people. That's it. They're not special. They're not smarter. They're not better. They're just people. They have an opinion. So does everyone else. So who cares? And I don't think they should get so much press because they have a political opinion. So does everyone else. Someone around the corner. I'd rather hear about someone in my local neighborhood and their political opinion because that affects local races than hearing about Kanye West or any other entertainer. But I do want to speak about him because he has been big news. And I find it really interesting because Kanye, he was lauded by Democrats for a long, long time. They love him because he came out during the Katrina hurricane, and we were trying to raise money to help people in there for that crisis. And he said on national TV that President Bush doesn't like black people. And he became a hero to the left. The far left was loving him. They couldn't get enough of him. And they played it over and over, that little clip of him saying that live and unscripted. No one knew he was going to say that. So that very same person who is, well, how can I say, less than eloquent and less than the timing of when he says things may not always be the best. But he came out and he made his announcement he put out a tweet this week, and he said that he supports our president. The horror that an American citizen would come out and say they support our president. And if you remember back just a few years ago, there were people saying, well, President Obama is our president and you have to support him because he is the president. And you know what? Republicans and conservatives agreed. He is our president. We wish he would do a better job, and we don't agree with his policies, but we support him as our president. We want him to do the best job he can. And you heard that over and over again. We support him in trying to do the best job he can. We don't like his policies because they don't work. And they didn't. So Kanye now is coming back and he says, well, same thought. I support the president because while I may not agree with him on everything, he's our president. I want him to do the best job possible. And you would think that Democrats would agree because they just finished saying that for 8 years. Support the president. Let's try and get the best job done that we can. Except this is President Trump that we're talking about, and he's a Republican, sort of. And so therefore, they're more than willing to say, no, we don't support the president. Really? How can you not support the president? He's the president of our country. That being said, when Kanye came out and said it, well, then there's a problem because Kanye's black and black people can't not be a Democrat. How can you dare do that? And he's a black entertainer. They can't be anything except Democrats. You can't say something that's off the reservation. You might even say off the plantation if you're a black entertainer. No. And they went ballistic, just as they have with every other black and person, every black entertainer, every person of color that has come out and taken on a more conservative or Republican point of view. Every single time they eviscerate them. They've gone so far as to make sure that they're putting death threats against Kanye. I mean, think about that. There is a death threat. This guy, Daz Dillinger, whoever he is, I really don't know. I could care less about rappers. But Daz Dillinger is some kind of rapper or related to some kind of rapper. It doesn't really matter. But he's gone out and he essentially has called for the Crips, a gang, to come out and try and attack, possibly kill Kanye West because he said, I support my president. Imagine if this was President Obama. Imagine if this was President Obama and someone came out and said, you know what? I support, pick someone white. I don't know. Anyone you want to pick. Bill O'Reilly said that he supported President Obama. Actually, I think a lot of people did. But he said he supported him, and suddenly you saw a bunch of white people say that they have to shoot Bill O'Reilly because of it. It would be insane. There is no equivalent here. I mean, it's just beyond the pall. It's insane that we're seeing. I mean, you've seen several rappers come out and I'm sure you've seen the memes on Facebook already that have been calling him an Uncle Tom, that have been attacking him as being stupid. They're trying to discredit him on anything and everything that he has to say. And now they're actually using physical violence. And I have to say to you, why are they going to this extreme? Why is it that important that this one man, he's just one guy, and he's only just one entertainer, but how dare he say something? They are so terrified about black people and people of color making any decision other than what was approved of by Democrats that they are willing to use violence, that they have encouraged the community to react violently against someone saying, I don't agree. To say that you don't agree with Democrats is tantamount to being physically assaulted. That's what they've called for here. I think that this is, while I don't like entertainers talking about politics, I think this is absolutely critical. That when you see an entertainer actually speak their mind, his own personal opinion, and that opinion was innocuous. All it was is, I support my president, not the biggest groundbreaking news for anyone. And honestly, no one wants our president to do badly. No one is improved. No one's life is helped when the president is doing a bad job. No one is safer. No one gets to have more jobs. No one gets to have more money if the president is doing a bad job. So everyone would want the president to do the best job possible. But to say that for a Republican, to say that you support a Republican as a black entertainer means that there are radio stations that are banning any music made by Kanye West. There are people who are trying to physically assault him. He is being assaulted off of social media constantly, called Uncle Tom and a lot of expletives I won't even say here. This is insane. And that is, I would say, it's Pavlovian. It's a way of conditioning. so that the next black entertainer or the next person of color who's an entertainer or a celebrity, and they turn around and they want to say that they have an opinion that isn't approved of, they're going to look at the example of Kanye West, of how much money they took away from him, of how they've hurt his lifestyle, and the physical threats that have been made against him, and say, do I want to go through all of that just because I have an opinion? No. So peer pressure, mob mentality, you're going to do what you're told. You know what that is? That's slavery. That's what that is. I have no problem saying that's slavery. That is the use of physical force to get an outcome that you want. And it's not physical slavery, but it's economic slavery. It's political slavery. Black people can't have their own independent view and pick a party like anyone else. You've never heard anyone say that George Takei has to be a Democrat, or that he has to be a conservative, or that he has to be anything. George Takei can be anything he wants to be, and no one would bat an eye because he's George Takei. So what? You don't think that's a difference? Of course. Think about Jenner. Used to be Bruce, now it's Caitlyn Jenner, I think it is. When he came out and he's transgendered, he's switched his sexes. Okay, that's his personal decision. Fantastic for him. And so he came out and all of a sudden he's the woman of the year and Democrats loved him and he's a symbol. We got to support him. And he came out on the news and said, I'm a Republican. When was the last time you heard anyone talk about Caitlyn Jenner? When was the last time you heard anyone talk about him? The moment that he said, I'm a Republican on the airwaves. He's a celebrity and he said he's a Republican, and they stopped talking about him. He's disappeared. This is the problem. Not that they're entertainers and they have no better opinion than anyone else. Not because they're not smarter than anyone else and they have no opinion that's really worth more than anyone else's. No, it's that they are the examples of how people of color especially are meant to behave. You must be this way. If you're transgendered, you must be Democrat, and in particular the far left and progressive. Because if you're not, well, look at Caitlyn Jenner. See how we treated her? That's what's going to happen to you. Oh, you want to be a conservative? Sorry, not going to happen. You want to be black? You are black or Hispanic, and you think you want to do anything and say that you're a Republican or a conservative? No, that's not going to happen. Not only will it not happen, it won't happen with the use of physical threat, or rather the threat of a physical encounter against you. That's how far they'll take it. I'm telling you, it's shocking to me. It's terrifying. There is no equivalent for this anywhere else in our country for any other group other than if you go back to slavery. It's the only equivalent that's there. It's the only one where a group of people are destined and defined by another group of people without their ability to make any change or difference about it. That's insulting. I tell you what, you may not agree with me, but I think it's very important that we have to understand where's our nation going. And right now where we're going is into a very single-minded, very approval-driven kind of politics where you must agree with one party or another party completely without any question. And if you have any question, then you're going to be ostracized. You're going to be punished as badly as can be done. And that is terrifying and that's damaging and that's dangerous. That's not what the First Amendment is about. We deserve better. We deserve politicians that answer questions, that make things clear for us on where they stand, whether we agree or not, so that we can make the best decision we possibly can on all the issues that affect us. And we should be able to ask those questions, regardless of our race, our creed, our country of origin. We should be able to ask those questions of our politicians, whether they're candidates or elected. And we should not have to fear that the big parties are going to come down on us about that. Because freedom means freedom. That means to ask a question and to get an answer, even if it's an answer you don't like. And people get to choose. Not have it chosen for them, but to choose. This is a problem. This is a bigger problem than it seems. It's not about Kanye. It's about black people. It's about people of color. It's about anyone's choice in this nation. And we need to stand up and say, you can't do that. Not to Kanye, not to anyone else. Because I guarantee if they get away with this with Kanye, and God forbid he's physically assaulted, but even if he's not, if they're getting away with it on Kanye, who's next? You are. Because Kanye at least has the benefit of having some friends of some influential people. He has money. He has opportunity to him that a lot of people don't. And you know what? If they're able to affect him, especially if they can physically attack him, what about individuals who don't have that protection, that don't have that background of having extra money, having influential friends, some other means to protect themselves? And at the same time, the government's also trying to take away your Second Amendment rights. So they're trying to take away your firearms. So you can't protect yourself from the government or anyone else because they want to take away your firearms. This is a problem. Think about it. But we're out of time on this episode, and I do thank you for spending the time with me today. And I always look forward to hearing back from you. It was a little bit more of a rant today than I usually do, but at the same time, there's a lot going on, and it has a big impact. But I want to hear your thoughts. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me what I missed. Let's have a discussion about that. Make your comments, maybe even call in. You can get me on Twitter. You can get me on Facebook. You can always call into the show. I'll be happy to talk with you and see, what did I get right? What did I get wrong? Where do we stand? Because we only improve when we talk to each other, even if we disagree. But with that, I'm done with this episode. We'll be back soon with another episode of No Soundbites Allowed. I look forward to seeing you at the very next episode. Bye-bye.
My soul is shallow and yours is still water, babe. Same match, no fading mate. Sounds full of ghosts and they keep haunting me. So tell me when you find your way, leads us back to yesterday. Lovers we once were, but never could we be. Oh no, no. Mirrors keep lying and I see you keep trying, babe. Hide something that your spells can keep. Your ghost and you keep dying, babe, but it's in your arms, it's not in my arms, and it's in your arms, it's not in my arms, and it's in your arms, it's not in my arms, and it's in your arms, it's not in my arms. So tell me when you find your way, leads us back to yesterday. Lovers we once were, never could we be, oh no, no. So tell me when you find your way, leads us back to yesterday. Lovers we once were, never could we be, Oh no, 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 no. Sounds full of ghosts and they keep walking, saying the same things, repeating the same lines. Sounds full of ghosts and they keep haunting me. So tell me when you find your way, leads us back to yesterday. Lovers we once were, never could we be. Oh no, no. Sounds full of ghosts,
they keep haunting me.
sounds full of ghosts.
They keep haunting me.
Sounds full of ghosts, they keep haunting